Today, I'm excited to have Neel Balar on the podcast. Neel is the co-founder of Clueso, an AI-powered platform that takes your screen recordings and transforms it into guided tutorials and documentation. He had previously worked on Desklamp, an AI tool that helps students and researchers make notes on their PDFs. He is also an IIT Madras alumnus and was part of the YC23 batch. So it's really great to have him on the podcast to talk about the way that he's using AI to solve a problem that a lot of B2B SaaS companies have in onboarding, and also really get deep into his journey of going from an idea to now serving so many customers across the world and being ready for a big, big rise. So with that said, I hope you enjoy the podcast.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Almost Dropouts podcast. Neil, welcome to the podcast.
Thanks so much for having me. Super excited to chat with you. Yeah.
Yeah, super excited to talk to you about your journey and specifically talk about Clueso as well. But we always start this podcast off talking about the initial spark, what brought you to this place where you are today. So take us on the journey, Neil. Like, what sparked your interest in entrepreneurship during your time at IIT Madras?
Sure. So I was in IIT Madras from 2018 to 2023. So I graduated last year, mid last year, and then in IIT Madras, I was working on multiple different projects since my first year itself. I was actually working on this in a project or as part of this team called Avishkar Hyperloop. So we used to build Hyperloop pod prototypes and then participate in the SpaceX Hyperloop pod competition, which was organized by Elon Musk.
Yeah.
And that was super cool. And then I participated as part of the team since my first year itself in college, and we got into the finals of the competition. We got to go to LA, and that's where I met Elon Musk as well in 2019. That
Oh,
was at the
wow.
SpaceX headquarters, so that's super cool. And after that, for the next 2 years, I was kind of working with the team. I was leading the team of 50, 60 people as well, and then we were building a lot of new hardware, a lot of hardware tech, and a lot of research as well. And that's something that I really loved about my time at IIT Madras. And then after that got over, when we sort of hired new team members to take care of it, I kind of felt that there's nothing much happening in my life. I really liked having that so much stress on my head, so many different things to do, and then so many things to worry about, and actually having the flexibility to work on what I wanted to work on. So that was something that I really liked when I was working back at Avishkar Hyperloop. And then I was like, I want something like that now as well. Otherwise it just feels very empty and it's not thrilling enough. And that's when I thought I'd work at a very, very early stage startup, either work at a very early stage startup or do my own startup as well. And that's when I met Akash and Prajwal. Of course, Akash and I, we have been friends since the first year of college. Both of us were in the same department. We also shared our hostel room in one of the semesters. And then Prajwal and Akash were good friends as well. And then we all got together. We started building this product called Desklamp. Is a digital reading and note making tool for students and researchers. And yeah, so that's how we started off. Basically, just wanted to build something of my own, have that
Yeah.
flexibility of what I wanted to work on. And also thought, like, this is the best time to be building. If you really want to build something, just as a college graduate, there's nothing else that you need to worry about, and you can literally be just focusing on this 24/7. And so just thought it is the best time to start building a company. Yeah.
Yeah, no, that makes a lot of sense. First off, I knew a couple people who were on the Waterloop team, the Waterloop's Hyperloop team.
Oh,
So
wow.
they're probably cursing you, you right now, being like, these guys got us. But but yeah, it's super sick competition. I know there was some really, really great innovation across universities. And I think it's really interesting because uh when these guys set a direction or say, hey, we have this objective, now find it, that really sparks this engineering curiosity inherent to all engineers. And so it's really cool to see what you can actually build when you have that. And I think that it just has this broader picture as well that translates into startups as well. So when you are setting the direction for the company and setting the culture, you remember these moments and the moments of
Absolutely.
inspiration and what brought you to that point. And I think it really helps in company building as well.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Totally agree with that. Yeah.
And you mentioned Desklamp, so that was sort of your foray into startups, helping students and researchers take notes on their PDFs.
Yes, yes,
Um,
that's exactly what we were building. And the reason why we started building of Desk Lamp was, during COVID, of course, everyone was reading a lot of digital documents, and then all of us used to read a lot of digital documents as well. And one thing we realized was, we were not retaining a lot of what we were reading from these documents. And then a lot of people take notes, of course. They've got like a physical notebook that they take notes in, or like they maintain like a separate Notion doc where they take all of the notes and all of that. But one thing we realized was the process of taking notes in general was very clunky, because
Yeah.
of which a lot of people were not even taking notes. And even the ones who were taking notes, when they would go back to their notes, they would not have the context of where each of those sections came from as well. And that's when we were like, let's try and solve for this problem. So we'll build a platform wherein on the left side you could read the document, on the right side you could make the notes, and you could link any of your notes back to the document, so that whenever you would go through the notes later on, it would take you back to the actual source whenever you wanted to get some more context as well.
Right.
And that's what we were building. And then we scaled that to like 40,000 plus users very, very quickly. A lot of students and researchers from like Ivy League colleges, all of the India's top IITs and liberal art colleges as well, because all of them used to read a lot of PDFs and documents, and they found a lot of value in the product. And it was all free, by the way. So because everyone is signing up, using it a lot. We had people who were spending like 5 to 6 hours on the product every day, because they were
Wow.
reading so much. And that was just crazy. But then yeah, that's what you're building. That's the idea we got into Y Combinator with as well. And
Hmm.
YC, when we kind of pitched them in the interview, they were like, that's great. I mean, we love the team, but we don't really like what you guys are building. You've built a really good product, you've acquired a lot of users, that's great. But this is definitely a graveyard space.
Right.
Students are never gonna pay for software, and as a business it wouldn't really make sense. And we thought, we were very naive back then. We were like, we would make it work, and we are doing a lot of things differently, because of which people would pay for our software and all of that. But YC, of course, YC being YC, they really focus on the team more than the idea. So they sort of still backed us. And then they were like, whatever it is, guys, you got to validate or invalidate this idea really, really quickly. And if
Yeah.
this doesn't work out, try and figure out what else you could be building. And then over the next 2 months, 3 months, we were exploring this idea. And then we realized not many were willing to pay for something like this. It was like a very much of a nice to have, but not something that they would pay for. And that's when we realized, as a business will not be able to build a big business out of it. And that's when, during the Y Combinator batch, which is winter 23, Jan to April last year, we were
Yeah.
exploring multiple different ideas, and then finally landed on Clueso. Yeah.
No, I mean that makes a lot of sense. I know you got your. I feel like this is how it starts for a lot of people. This do a side project, it starts to grow. Then you're like, oh wow, this might be a business. It's actually a very classic YC story as well, where you get in for an idea, but you pivot very quickly when you realize, hey,
Absolutely.
I love the the idea itself, but the business case doesn't make sense. So then you pivot up to different ideas, but with the guidance and with the support that YC brings you, right? So
Totally.
very very classic stories in both those from both those point of views. But I think what's really interesting there is early on, you got into this rhythm of getting users on, free or not free. The fact that people were using your platform is still a very very big deal. People don't understand that itself is very very difficult.
Yep. For sure. And then I think that's one thing that helped us get into YC as well. Because of that, we were able to prove that as founders we can build good products that users actually love using. Although they
Yeah.
were not willing to pay for it, we could still prove that we know how to build products, which is I think overall very helpful.
100%. So, you got into YC, you guys are starting to realize that, hey, although the idea is good, the business viability might not be there. So what was this aha moment, I guess, or where was this pivot? Like, lead me through the pivoting process, I guess, and how did that end up coming to Clueso finally?
Yeah, it was a very long pivoting process actually. So, once we realized Desklamp was not going to work out as a business, we thought, we would pivot to some other idea. And then over the next, 7 to 8 weeks, we explored like, 6, 7 different ideas, interviewed so many, YC founders from our batch to, kind of, get their thoughts on, what we were planning to build, understand what their workflows were at their previous companies, for each of the ideas that we are planning to build. And then we took like close to 100 user interviews over like 3 to 4 weeks. And then that's how we sort of validated or invalidated some of these ideas. We were able to figure out like 1 or 2 ideas, DevOps ideas, which were really good and something that a lot of people wanted. But as a team we realized we were not the right team to be building those, because we have never had experience of working on DevOps, at any of the other companies, because we all had just graduated college. And then,
Mm.
that itself, like, as an, idea space, it wasn't really exciting enough for us. And that's when we thought, founder market fit is definitely not there. And, that's when we were talking to Michael Seibel, and then, we asked him, what are some things that we could be doing. We are in a pivot hill trying to figure out, but then, nothing is, just sticking. And what do we do? And he's like, look, I mean, a lot of startups go through this, and now there's, two or three different ways you can look at this. So one is, try and talk to all the other YC companies in your batch, try and figure out some of the problems that most of them are facing, and then, try and maybe solve for one of those problems, and then, try and sell it to companies in your batch itself, something that, most of these companies want.
Yeah.
Because of course, YC companies are always, some of the best companies in the world as well. And if you can build something, that most of the companies in your particular batch want, probably that's something that would, work out well for a lot of other companies as well. And that's when he's like, one of the things that you could be doing. Or the second thing that you could also be doing is just go back to the whiteboard, think about the problems that you guys faced yourselves, when you were building your previous product. And that's when we were like, we went back to the whiteboard, we thought about, problems we faced ourselves when we were building Desklamp. And
Mm.
one of the problems that we could think of, and this is something that we had thought of, before as well. But then again, now that we are in the pivotal, we sort of, when we are looking at the problems we faced, we could think of this problem wherein, a lot of our users who are churning, because they could not figure out how to use our product, or they didn't know
Right.
how to use some of the, most unique features we had, or marquee features we had. And that's when we're like, okay, how do we solve for this product education problem? So many companies, SaaS companies are there, and then there's so many of them, keep building new features, like a lot of value add features. But in the end, it's only valuable if users are able to use it. And then, how do you get them to use it, or how do you communicate the value, or, educate your customers on how to use your product?
Right.
So, and we spoke to like a few other YC companies, couple of big, Series B, Series C plus companies as well. And then, in the first call itself, they were like, they were willing to buy something like this. So that's when
Mm.
we were like, let's, just try and build it out. So we firstly built out like a, Figma prototype, demoed that to a couple of companies, saw that they were willing to pay for it. And then that's when we started building our MVP. Like, typical, of course, YC, sell before you build, which we had
Yep.
never followed before YC, but then now that's the only thing we do. And then, that was very helpful. And that's when we were like, okay, let's try and solve a product education problem. Initially we started off with something else. It was more of like an in-app product tours. So like, in-app tool tips. When you just sign up on a product, you see those tool tips on, go here, go here, go here, things like that. But then what we thought was, those tool tips were actually not very effective, because just after you sign up on a product, people just want to skip all of those. They just want to, try and see what it looks like first, instead of like, going through all of that process. And that's
Yep.
when we're like, what if we could give a widget within the product, wherein, customers could just click on that, and then when they actually wanted to do something, they could just search for that, and then we would trigger an interactive tour like that. So that's what we
Mm.
started off with. We, signed a few sort of, non-binding contracts for that, to see if people are willing to pay for it. And after that, once we had the MVP, when we gave it to the users, one thing we realized is we had to sort of customize it for every company that we were sort of, onboarding, like, because of how their DOM structure was, how their, code base was written. And then that's when we were like, probably, that way it's not very scalable. This, as a tech, whatever we built out, whatever our unique insight was, we thought, that wouldn't really work out, because that would require like custom integrations for every product or, company that we were working with. And when we were talking to these customers, we also realized that they were all creating a lot of videos, or they actually wanted to create a lot of videos. And many of them had like a video editing team, like design team separately doing it, a lot of back and forth between teams. And when we personally thought of ourselves, like, our own journey, we realized that at Desklamp we had created 2 3 videos, and we had spent 1 week each on each of those videos.
Yep.
But those really worked very very well. Like, we had created one video specifically for law students on, how to use Desklamp for law students. And because of that, we were able to acquire so many law students as, users, and they were all very very super active users, for our previous product. And that's why you're like, videos do work really well. But
Yep.
then they cannot be just like, normal Loom videos, or, you want to, they have to be engaging, really really professional, and something that, a lot of people would like to watch. But then creating such professional videos is like a very, very manual process. There's a lot of
Yeah.
back and forth between different teams. Sometimes you work with agencies and whatnot. And of course, as a startup or as a software company, you keep building out a lot of features, because of which all of these keep going out of date. And that's when we're like, how do we make the process of creating this, these videos, super easy? And then we started off in this idea. We kept on launching things in on LinkedIn, and then saw what kind of features sort of got us good traction, or some demos booked. And that's how we started off. And now we're building a tool which converts very raw, clunky loom kind of screen recordings into studio quality product videos and step by step documentation in
Right.
minutes. So whatever used to take multiple hours, tens of hours before, now it has become like a 15-minute process with Clueso.
Wow. Yeah, I mean, I can completely relate to this problem. Building a B2B SaaS solution myself, product education is the bane of my existence. So I 100% understand what you guys are going with. And, I think that's what people forget, that, when the user is going on a journey, the the moment you want to get them to is the aha moment. And so everybody always says reduce friction, but
Hmm.
essentially why they're saying to reduce friction is to get to this moment. But part of trying to get to the moment is having to guide them through the
Absolutely.
steps that enable that moment. And for the most part, with a lot of B2B SaaS platforms, the user has to take certain steps in the journey, like put in certain data, sign certain forms. It can be as
Do some
simple as that,
integrations. Yeah.
do some integrations. And so you need to keep them in the loop and keep them informed and not get them frustrated to get to the point where the magic happens.
Yeah.
So every single B2B SaaS platform, whether they are starting on this or they eventually realize, will have to solve the product education problem very, very effectively. And so I think, obviously there's you guys already have so much traction, so it's clearly validated. But just on that's while you're going through it, of course, that's something I think that has been really massive for my own personal product the last 2 months. And so I
Awesome.
completely resonate with that problem statement you guys brought up there. And I love the approach you guys took as well, where you obviously stayed patient, you explored different spaces, but you didn't jump on the very first idea that you guys had.
Yeah.
You still realized, evaluated the team, evaluated the product market fit, and even when you guys did jump on this idea, you actually made Figma designs, and you did. There's this guy Alberto Savio. He has this book called The Right It, which I can
Hmm.
get into for a long time, but he has this term called prototyping, where you basically give
Yeah.
users, a feel of what the product will be, and sort of put this uh, you know, this fugazi in front of them before you actually build the product. And I think too many teams, especially engineering dominated teams, don't do that. They go straight into product building, and they'll go crazy on the commits for a month, 2 months, just to find out nobody wants this product.
That's
And we got to
exactly
go
what we
back to
had
the
done
drawing
for our
board.
previous product, and it wasn't 1 to 2 months. It was 1 year, and we realized no one's gonna pay for something like this. And that's when when you're building Clueso, we're like, we built a Figma prototype wherein they could interact with the screens and figure out what the workflow would look like, and we created our demo video based on that, and just share that with prospects to understand if that's something that they would want and would be willing to pay for. Yeah. Didn't
Mhm.
even write like a single line of code before. We had a couple of customers saying that they'd be good, they're going to pay us like $500 a month, for example. Yeah.
Yeah, that's heresy to software engineers, though. You got that's like you got to switch from the engineering mindset to the business mindset, and the startup
Absolutely.
mindset. And then, of course, I think, a lot of people talk about YC and its advantages, of course, like with the education, advisors as well. But I think, one of the biggest things that people don't realize, and I would say honestly, that is worth getting into YC for, even if you have the option, is just the network. Like, having access to Bookface,
Yeah.
and the amount of customers who will come just as YC alum, and to support YC, is absolutely crazy. And so if anybody is considering YC, just keep in mind that it's not about the education, it's not about the money, it's about, well, it can be about the money, but it's about the network. That is the greatest effect that YC actually has.
Absolutely. I mean, this is. I mean, YC definitely was a game changer in our journey for us. For sure. We're doing so many things very, very wrong. But then after
Mhm.
we got into YC, we kind of realized that those are not the right ways of building a startup or building a product, or selling the product as well. So for us, it was definitely a game changer, and I would like personally recommend anyone and everyone who has the opportunity that you should definitely go through YC if you have a chance. Yeah.
Awesome. Well, there's our YC pitch to everyone. But let's talk a little bit about Clueso, right? So,
Yeah.
you mentioned that on a higher level, Clueso basically uses AI to convert screen recordings into polished tutorials and step-by-step documents. And so, very, very useful. I like you mentioned, a lot of actually, if you look at a lot of the YC websites even today, a lot of
Hmm.
them are just Loom recordings, but it's just basically the starter kit to
Yeah.
how you can grow. But if you can obviously get those more polished videos from beforehand, the more chances you have, especially when you're attracting enterprise customers. But you know,
Absolutely.
when you guys were initially building this out, like what were the challenges there? Like how did you guys go from 0 to 1?
No, absolutely. I mean, a lot of challenges, especially in terms of just figuring out if you're building something right. So basically, as I mentioned, we pivoted from Desklamp to like a product education tool where it was initially in-app product walkthroughs, and then we realized even that wasn't working out. So we pivoted to something more towards videos and documentation. And what we were doing basically was, as I mentioned, we were just launching or creating a couple of things, prototypes for like some of these things that we wanted to build, and we would launch those on LinkedIn, see which of those would get some sort of some good number of engagement, or like some demos booked. And then based on that we decided what would actually sort of what is something that people actually need as well, of course, along with the user interviews. And that's how we started the process. So we realized just converting like a very clunky recording into a studio quality video, of course, is like a huge value add. And
Yeah.
then the first thing that we realized in that process is, of course, getting the audio right. Like because when you're recording videos, more often than not you forget to mention things, the mistakes, background noise and whatnot, because of which you have to keep re-recording them again and again and again, and sometimes even after that you're still not happy with the quality.
Yeah.
And that's what we thought people are spending a lot of time on, and they wanted to kind of solve for that. And so we actually built a prototype wherein you would drop in a raw screen recording, and it would give you an output with an AI voiceover instead of your voiceover.
Mm.
So that's what we started off with. But then what we realized was, of course, when you would and when users started using this, we what we realized was a lot of them actually wanted to edit the script as well, because when you're recording an original video, sometimes again you still make mistakes and whatnot. So they didn't want the same script to be used with an AI voiceover as well. They wanted to be able to edit the script as well. And that's when you're like, okay, let us give them an opportunity to edit the script as well, and then make those changes reflected in the video. um, and then they started customers started making changes, and one thing we realized was video was going out of sync with the audio, of course, because now the script is longer or shorter than what it was originally. And that was one very hard technical problem that we solved initially. So that was that's something that we are still very unique. The way we have solved it is very unique. And now irrespective of how what your original recording looked like, you can make any number of changes to your script, and Clueso would still ensure that your audio and video remains in perfect sync, and all of that is handled automatically. So that's one of the technical challenges that we worked on. Of course, apart from that, there's some latency challenges, pronunciations, stitching the videos together, after someone made those changes. So a lot of video processing related challenges, but yeah, that's those are on the engineering side. On the acquiring first 10 customer side of things, that is very challenging as well. So we went through like a lot of different ways. Some were through like warm intros from like existing investors. Some were through like I was on like a lot of WhatsApp groups, like for example, of founders and whatnot. And then people there would be like, I'm looking to hire for like a customer success manager or a product marketing team, or I just want to start that team. And then I'd reach out to them like privately as a response to that message, saying, if you're looking for someone like this, probably one of their job roles is going to be to create product education content, and that's what we're trying to solve for. I'd love for you to give it a try. And then like very much of like very personalized founder hustle through different channels. So that's one of the things. We would go to like LinkedIn job hire roles, like look at companies who are hiring for roles, who had just raised funds, and then who are, and one of the, let's say for example, job responsibilities was something like creating documentation and whatnot. So we'd manually find out those kind of companies, reach out to the relevant person who put out the job post as well, and then try and convert them and make them a customer as well. So yeah, a lot of different ways to how we acquired like the first 10 customers. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, it's like guerrilla warfare. You have certain tools. You don't have the whole world or the best sales team in the world. So
Absolutely. I
how do you
mean,
leverage yourself?
for sure, yeah. And earlier, I think that's also something that really, really helps is just uh, founders themselves, like trying to do everything and doing trying to reach out to people, doing sales, and ensuring that they have the great experience, they have a very, very good experience. Once they start using the product as well, that's something that gives them more belief in the product. And of course, even earlier when you're just starting, the product might not be perfect. Of course, it's not very mature as well. So these are the other kind of things, the relation that you build with the person who's using the product really, really helps. And yeah, that's something that we really focused on as well.
No, 100%. I mean, one of the things, I think the shift that I've had in the last couple
Hmm.
months is, a a lot of people, including myself, try competing with the bigger companies on the stuff that you just can't compete with them on. Like, you are a small company. You can't do anything about that. So when you lean into your strengths, though, as a startup, that the big companies can't compete with you on necessarily, that is, I think, when you start to see success. So like stuff like,
Absolutely.
hey, I am the CEO of the company. This is my number. You have any problems, you
Yeah,
message me directly at night, at day, whatever. Like no big company can do that. So there's certain
exactly.
advantages that you should lean into, I feel like, as a small startup, that you know th- that's the biggest advantage you have, and that's how you can get customers
Yeah,
early on.
totally. That's the only way you can acquire customers and then keep acquiring customers, and that at some point you kind of can win over of course much bigger companies as well.
100%. Well, talking more on the engineering side, actually, I know you guys are integrating multiple AI models into
Hmm.
Clueso's platform, and I think one of the most underrated aspects of building B2B SaaS is finding the right vendors and the right people to source from.
Yeah,
Because usually software engineers tend to default to creating their own code and don't want
yeah.
to use external vendors. But if you're trying to optimize for speed and reliability in a quick way, you're not going to be able to just build custom components for everything. So how do you guys go about integrating multiple models into the final product and going about that process?
No, that's a great question. So one thing, once, of course, initially when we were building the prototype, we had to use some of these models because building these models doesn't make sense at all. And then especially you just want to get to the MVP soon and then see if that's something that users are finding value, and you don't care about the cost that you're incurring or what you're using in the background, but you just want to show them the output and here's how it works, and
Yeah,
ensure that that is solving the customer's problems. And that's
GCP
what
for
we did.
startups.
We sort of like found out about like in our case, of course, we were doing text to speech for the voice generation. So for that, we just went ahead with some of the market leaders in the space, something like 11 Labs, PlayHD, a couple of other tools as well. And then apart from that, we were doing a lot of transcription as well, and we'd heard a lot of good things about Deepgram. And of course, as startups, a lot of these deals help a lot as well, credits or deals that they give you.
Of course.
So we just looked out for products that had good number of credits and also were one of the best products in the market, and then just tried and sort of integrated them into the product. And yeah, I think that's how we started it off. And then those were all working really well. We realized at some different places we had to do a lot of custom work on top of the outputs that the models were giving to be able to
Sure.
actually produce a great output. And that's where we built our own expertise as well, wherein we kind of built that chain or like workflow around using multiple different models together, and then being able to get to the output. And one thing that we personally realized early on is, for a product like ours, what would be super important, or what our moat would basically be, the video processing side of things, or actually content generation side of things, and not really of course any of these models wherein speed generation or like transcription or script enhancement and all of that. We
Mhm.
realized all of that is something for which we can still keep using like off the shelf models, but then the video processing and the editing experience that we offer customers is going to be like the mode for a product like ours. And that's when we started focusing on those aspects more. And then of course we've always been fine tuning or figuring out or like changing the models as and when we believe that something could work better than the other existing model we have, or maybe something could help us reduce costs as well. But then yeah, that's what we keep doing. Like every month we've got like a couple of days of sprint wherein we just look at what other models we could keep adding. For example, we started off with 11 labs, but now
Yep.
we have 11 labs, Cartesia, Google, multiple different voiceovers on the product. And then in future we want to be able to offer or have like all the text to speech providers on our product itself, wherein let's say if a customer is already using any of the other text to speech providers and they want to continue using their voices, they could just choose that provider and then pick one of their voices as well.
Right.
So in the end, that's not the product that we are building. We are mostly building like the process of converting like a very clunky recording into a studio quality video, and that's our sort of main goal. And then whatever customers need with that in terms of the flexibility, we would want to offer all of that to them.
100%. That makes a lot of sense. I mean, there's only so many fronts you can compete on, right?
Absolutely.
And so, you could try making your own custom models for everything, but the reality is you're only like a certain size startup. Like, what do you like? How can you compete? And so I think that's one thing. That's one difference you have to make, where it's like, okay, this is our magic. This is what we will focus and compete on and make our code on. But the rest of this, we need to just find reliable vendors that we can
Yeah.
plug and play, and we might have to do some custom integrations on top of it. But for the most part, it's good to go. And I think, for example, one of the more controversial apps, I guess not controversial, but people are confused about it. Feel like is how well Perplexity is doing.
Hmm.
But they did a very similar thing where they're like, hey, we're not going to compete on models today. We're
Yeah.
going to focus on the experience that the customer has when they're using the models, because a lot of these AI companies that are deep into AI are just focusing on the models and not the user experience at the end.
Totally. Yeah.
Um, and so, yes, that's not to say those companies can't compete on user experience going forward,
Hmm.
but Perplexity's success is just more credence to this notion of how important it is
Yeah.
to basically focus on the experience and focus on only certain areas that really matter as a
Right.
company, especially as you're growing. And then in the future, once it becomes more and more of a big deal, and you realize, hey, we need to get off these guys, then you can invest the resources to do that if you need to at that point.
Exactly. Yeah.
But that's really, really interesting. And I know one of the more interesting features you guys have is the ability to translate into over 30 languages. And I think that just goes back to the dynamic of you guys as a team being, global, and your customers being global. But like, was there a certain moment or a story that drove this feature's development, or was it just something that naturally progressed as you were talking to customers?
No, that's absolutely. That's a great question. Actually, I don't remember exactly, when that happened. So I do remember that, we actually launched, the feature wherein you could convert a rough video into professional video with an AI voice on top of your video. You could edit the script and all of that, and then a lot of our customers were finding a lot of value in that. And then we had a couple of, Southeast Asian companies who wanted to create videos in Indonesian as well, Bahasa, because a
Mhm.
lot of their customers were there. And then they asked us if we could actually, if they could record, or create videos in Bahasa using Clueso. And then back then, what we had built initially to start with was like an ability for them to be able to record the videos in Bahasa and also generate the videos in Bahasa, which was a separately, completely different process from the English video. Like the process was the same, but they had to do it two times, right?
Right.
Separately, once for English and once for Bahasa. And then we had multiple customers coming in through that. Like a lot of Indian customers wanted to create videos in Hindi. A
Mhm.
couple of European customers wanted to create videos in German and Spanish as well. And then that's when we are like, a lot of customers want to create videos in a lot of these different languages, and they're all doing it manually. And without a tool like us, it's the process, it's almost impossible, right? Because then you either need to have a team member within your team who can record the video, who knows some other language, and then record the video in that language as well. Or you need to get firstly do Google Translate, generate the voice, and then do a lot of manual work for hours, and then get it sort of reviewed from someone else outside the team, or hire an external agency to be able to translate your content. But then that's when you're like, I mean, with AI, models are getting better and better. They,
Yep.
like they're multilingual as well. And then how do we, solve for it using a product like ours? And then that's when we started working on that. We built out a prototype. Initially started off with like 8 to 12 languages, like top European languages, Hindi, Indonesian, Bahasa, like the languages that our customers were asking for, and the languages for at which the models were already pretty good. And then we saw a lot of value that in that, like, our customers were actually creating one video in English and then converting that into, like, Hindi, Spanish, German, and so many other languages. And then when we actually looked at their reactions to when they actually use this feature for the first time, it was just awesome. Like, I mean, their
Yeah.
reactions were like, they just felt that it was magical. And then, because they were never able to do that before, but they always knew that this could add a lot of value, like localization of content, especially if you're a global company targeting customers from multiple different geographies. Localization, of course, is a really, really big thing and could really improve the customer experience, but it's just never possible before. But then, with Clueso it is possible. Of course, there are a lot of challenges around languages as well, because you've got a video, let's say, for example, in English, and then you don't know which words to translate to any other language. For example, Spanish, some words you would probably still want to continue them to have them in English as well. So there's still a lot of challenges around this that we're trying to solve for. We've already solved for many of these, but
Yeah.
then overall, localization is something that a lot of our customers wanted to do, and that's when we were like, let's solve for this. So we added 8 to 12 languages, and then we had so many more customers coming in and asking for so many different languages. Like, we had a lot of companies using us who were targeting the Middle East market. So they wanted a lot of these languages that are used in Middle East as well, for example Arabic. And then we had a lot of Indian customers targeting customers from all over India. So, like, they wanted a lot of South Indian languages like Telugu, Tamil, Kannada. And so we just realized that there's so much more that could be done with languages, and then we added so many more languages as well. And
Right.
now customers are like finding a lot of value in that feature. So that's probably one of our best product decisions as well, which is, of course, helping us scale our contracts as well, because now they're creating a lot more videos in a lot of different languages.
Mm.
But their customers are also having a much better experience, wherein with just one click, they're able to convert an English video into, like, so many different languages, which was never possible before.
Yeah, I mean, the more you break down barriers, the more opportunity that brings for
Absolutely.
for companies too, right? Like, I think in general, like a lot of people, the traditional way of going about sales, which totally fair, and I think still has a lot of credence today, is like you focus on your country wherever you're from, and then you grow sales globally. But I
Yeah.
think the beauty of software is that software can be distributed globally pretty easily. But the reason you're not really focusing on it before is a lack of resources, but second, you know, this localization or this globalization piece that makes it very difficult. But if you look at the language of software or like UI components, that's all the same. It's just the
Yeah.
text that really needs to change. So I think products like yourself that make it very easy for people to translate, and of course other products that are coming out that are making it easy for UI components and all of this to translate as well automatically through AI, is just going to make the distribution experience all the more better, and is going to
Yeah.
see a lot of rapid adoptions, not only in the US market if you're building an English product, for example, but across the world, as long
Absolutely.
as you can deliver value.
Yeah, exactly. And it's not just customer facing as well, right? So we've got a lot of teams who use it for their internal team training. So, like, a lot
Yeah,
of teams or companies that use us, they're 1,000, 5,000 plus employees as well. And then they've got employees in a lot of different geographies in, let's say, for example, operations companies. And then they want to train their internal teams on, internal tools, internal processes, and all of that. And then, like, localization there is also a very, very big thing, which is, super helpful. Yeah.
100%. Yeah, I mean, just going with that example, right? I'm sure there's amazing talent that these companies can leverage, but they don't might not necessarily know English if that's the corporate language. And so,
Yeah.
this is like, one step along those lines. I am sure, your Zoom and Google Meets of the world are going to have automatic
Absolutely.
translation very
For sure.
quickly in these calls. And so, even if I talk about it from the podcast level, I'm sure there's amazing guests I'd love to talk to, but I can't
Yeah.
talk to right now because we might not be able to talk in English. But
Yeah.
very, very soon that will be possible. And so on a corporate level, it just opens up the possibilities of where teams can be located. And so products like yourself,
Totally.
internally facing, can really help with that as well.
Yep.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think, it's obviously paying off. Like, Clueso has onboarded over 250 companies in the last 12 months, which is
Yep.
phenomenal rate of growth, guys, like amazing. And so, beyond just the translation, what drove this rapid growth, do you think?
Yeah, I think translation was one of those small pieces for sure. Overall, there's just so many things, right? As I mentioned, like, every software company needs to create videos. Everyone wants to create a lot more videos as well, but it's just not been possible because of the current ways, because of how manual the current processes are, or how the because the videos itself are not engaging and they're not really adding value. But then everyone wants to create a lot of good professional videos to communicate, like for example, new features that they're building, to create training videos, tutorials, and all of that. And again, video as a format itself is growing so much. Everyone's used to watching TikToks and reels and whatnot, and then even while they're consuming like content on how to use some software, they would, most of the users, like close to 70% of the users, prefer learning how to use any software to like a video format, right? So video overall as a format itself is really really big, and that's something that has helped us grow super fast as well, because everyone already faces this problem. They know that they want to create a lot more videos, but then they just don't have the resources, or the kind of skill set to be able to do it. Like creating a video of course involves like really good video editing skills, and then someone who's really good and really able to have like a really good script as well. But
Mm-hmm.
all of that requires like multiple different people with a lot of expertise and experience in all of these things, which is not something that every company can have. And even if they do, they cannot really create enough videos, because the number of videos that they want to create is just scaling, but then they cannot really scale the team at the same rate, right? And that's what we're trying to solve for, wherein anyone without any video editing skills at all, or whoever has never even created a video, for example, can create like really really studio quality videos in just 10 to 15 minutes. So like the process is 10 times faster, anyone can do it, and the quality is 10 times better.
Yeah.
And that's what we are building, and that's what we have built, and that's what has helped us grow super fast as well. And a couple of ways we've grown are, one of them has actually been LinkedIn, right? Me and my co-founders are, we're all very very active on LinkedIn. We talk about what we are building, what we're posting. So like there are different kinds of posts that we do. So one
Mm-hmm.
is of course about our personal story itself. Like how did we start building a startup? What was our pivot journey like? How did we onboard our first 10 customers? What is the process of how did we go about raising our funds as well? And we realized that a lot of founders, a lot of people want to actually see content like this, and hear from someone else's story. So we talk a lot about our personal stories, share what's been working for us. And those are the kind of posts on LinkedIn that do really really well, because they're like real life stories. The people see what worked, they get like tactical tips out of these. And then because of this, our followers are growing on LinkedIn. And now
Right.
that the followers are growing, we put out a lot of thought leadership content as well about the space we are in. Like for example, how to go about announcing your SaaS product updates, what are the best practices to it. And then
Right.
that's something that is helping us build credibility in the space we are in. And apart from that, of course, when we release new features, and when we have got anything to talk about the product, we do a lot of posts about that as well. And then overall, with the different kinds of posts that we are doing on LinkedIn over the last few weeks and few months, like I think more than a year now, is consistently posting all of these things has really helped us a lot. That has helped us build the credibility. And then a lot more people are seeing what we are building. And then because we keep appearing on their feed again and again, at some point they're like, I need to go check out what Clueso does, man. Like it just keeps popping up, and then these guys are always there here. So that's something that has worked well for us. LinkedIn has been a great channel, and also because a lot of videos that we post on LinkedIn are all created with Clueso. So people are like,
Mm.
we want to be able to create a video like this. How do we do this? And then that's when
Yeah.
we like, check out Clueso. Right. So that's been one great channel. Apart from that, one thing that we've also realized is community has also been a great channel. They've identified a couple of communities of people whose actual job is to create really good training content for customers, ensure that they're getting onboarded well, they're getting value out of the product. And then they spend a lot of time creating all of these videos and documentation. The process is super manual, and they're always like overworked because of how many more videos there are to create. But with a tool like Clueso, they're able to do that 10 times faster, because of which they're able to create a lot more videos and a lot more documentation. So, we've figured out a couple of communities like that. We've onboarded a few customers from there. And anytime now, anyone wants to create videos and they're asking for tool suggestions, our customers kind of, go there and then talk about Clueso, saying, this is something that we have been using and we've been finding a lot of value. So once you find, those customers, and if you ensure that they're, getting a lot of value,
Yeah.
then they will rave about your product, wherever they can. And then we've got so many champions like that who just, talk about Clueso, who helped us get like, 4 or 5 customers each, additional customers each as well. So like that's also something that has worked well for us. And apart from that, just overall word of mouth has been great, for a product like ours. So these have been the channels through which we've acquired these companies till now.
Super interesting. I think well, it's good to hear about LinkedIn working out for you guys and
Yeah,
community, of course. And I think the thing a lot of people forget, especially when you're dealing, I think a lot of people get caught up in the big company trap where, you know, uh, big companies are basically trying to sell you on something, but the reality is you don't know if it's actually real or not. But people think sales is a deception. I think a lot of early stage founders, and
yeah,
I think as you go through it, you realize no, it doesn't have to be a deception.
absolutely.
You bring on customers, you tell them what it is, you find the right bunch of customers. But if you can, stick by what you say, and you bring them along for the journey, you provide them value, and you continually show the work you're doing to keep continuing to buy them value. If you can get them across the line, those customers will be your best sales channel going forward,
Absolutely.
and the network effect is real. And so I think a lot of people get caught up in this trap that, oh, I need to get customers no matter what. And then, customers come on, they're not happy, they weren't the right customer, or you just sold them on something that was not possible because you're trying to do more big company tactics. Um, and then, they go away, they churn. And it doesn't necessarily translate into this network effect. So I think it's really
Absolutely.
great to see how you guys are, not only just getting out there to get those customers, but
Yeah.
once you do, they you're making sure that they actually know what they're signing up for, and they like the product that they're using. And I think in the long run, very very quickly, or I guess in your case it's already happening, very very quickly, it translates into better and better results.
Oh, totally. I think that's just been, word of mouth has been a very, very big channel for us. And that only happens when you're able to, provide the value that you kind of promise to customers, and actually much more than that. And also, one reason why, any company would prefer like a very early stage startup like ours over, like so many existing players, or even, them taking a bet on a startup is, there are a couple of reasons, right? Like, because again, you could only win on a few things, and one things that, startups can do better than much bigger companies is ship really really fast. Because
Yeah.
bigger customer companies have like, thousands and millions of customers that they need to worry about, so they can't really, build and ship, something scrappy. But as startups, you can always do that. You can always, just keep deploying things, and keep shipping things, and always, get that immediate feedback from customers, and then, keep building. So building fast, and then, delivering value, I think that's something that's super helpful overall. And that's why, shipping fast has been one of the things that we definitely really prioritize at Clueso. And that's something that, a lot of our customers love about us as well. They're like, every Monday morning I wake up, I, hear like I see 3 Clueso updates on like a, the Clueso Slack channel we have. And then that's just, I've never seen any company, build so fast. So if you're able to build so fast, even if you probably can't solve for all of their problems right now, they will trust in you that, you will be able to solve those soon because of how fast you're moving. And then that's why they would want to partner with you in their journey, and, want to be one of those companies that's, working closely with you to give that feedback. And then, that's why they would want to work with you as well. So that's something that really works well. Yeah.
Yeah, no, 100%, 100%. I think, we talked about this earlier. You can give your phone number. They can,
Absolutely.
I think one of those strengths, like you mentioned with early stage startups, is you know you become sort of a collaborative process in some ways, where like, hey, I think this feature would be great. Can we
Yeah.
implement it? And then you sort of, I mean, as a startup, you got to make sure you don't fall into the trap where you're over indexing on features. But as long as it
Right.
fits into the roadmap, and as a priority, not only for that customer, for other customers, you can get it shipped out very quickly. And for them, it's a big
Totally.
deal, because most of the big companies, they're basically talking to a brick wall.
Yeah,
Like, if they
exactly.
want a feature, it's not
The
happening.
timelines are all in like, few quarters and whatnot. And then for us, it could be just few days. Then, that's the power we have over, any big company. And yeah, that's exactly something that, founders should focus on a lot as well.
Well, you'll send an email, and then it'll be like, oh, let me go check with the engineering team. The reply might be 7 to 10 business days. And then 10 business days
Exactly.
later, like, oh, the engineering team is saying it's somewhere on the roadmap in Q4. Like,
Yeah,
like that's
exactly.
basically the extent of it. And
Right,
then big companies wonder, oh, why, where did these startups come up? Why didn't these ideas come to us earlier? But when you have
right.
processes like that, that's basically what happens. Which, maybe that's not a bad startup idea if anybody's looking for one. But but that makes a lot of sense. And I think, alongside your customer base growing rapidly, what's really been really interesting, and we talked about this earlier with the languages, is that diversity of customers you have. You have 50% of your customers are from the US, but 30% are from India, and then you have Europe, LATAM, Australia, Southeast Asia. And I think the approach you guys are taking is a little bit different actually than even some of the knowledge that YC will put out there, or some or traditional paths that startups take. So how have you guys been approaching these different markets and being able to balance, balance that?
Yeah, absolutely. No, that's a great question, and I think a lot of software advice which is like built for one market and then build like a really good product that works for that market probably doesn't work in our scenario, because ours is a very very horizontal product irrespective of which market you go to. Like
Mm,
wants to create videos, everyone wants to create videos faster, everyone wants their videos to look much better than how they look right now. And then the problem remains across different geographies. If anything, it could be probably way more I'd say something way more pressing in some geography or the other because of the costs of employees and whatnot.
yeah.
And that's why definitely something, so the value is there. What we realize is for a product that we are building, like people can find value irrespective of which geography they are in. And then it's basically the software companies that we are targeting, and they could be from anywhere. And again, that's also one of the great things about SaaS, which is you could be sitting anywhere and then still be selling to the entire world. And then that's something that we really focused on as well. And one thing that also helped us a lot was, of course, we our team is majorly based in Bangalore in India, so of course we've got a lot of network there, and a lot of people know us there. We were able to acquire some very big early customers from the US as well, which helped us acquire those next set of customers as well. And then apart from that, because again, we our main mode of selling the product has been through like LinkedIn community and whatnot. People are there from all the different geographies there on all of these channels. Like
Yeah.
we the GTM or strategy that we have been following is very global. As So that's why we've been able to do that. And then of course one thing that's challenging is how do you ensure that you can still offer like great support to all of these companies that you're onboarding, because now they're from different geographies, the time zones are very different and all of that. And that's something as founders we realized we would just try and solve for that. So most of my time is in Bangalore. I also spend a few months every year from SF. And then while I'm in Bangalore, I just stay up till like 3 a.m. in the night so that I could work with Eastern and then Pacific time zones as well. And that's what some of our other team members also do. And
Yeah.
then while we're in the US, or maybe we've got a few other team members in India who handle like the Indian time zone clients, and then Singaporean. And then we could handle all the time zone, all the clients in like time zone similar to that of like Pacific or Eastern time zone.
Yeah.
So there are of course some challenges, but then also acquiring customers from different geographies really really helps, because and then you've got like multiple different networks in different geographies on the map. And then everything is spreading. So think of it like it could be, you could grow much faster than just targeting one specific geography and then trying to go there. Of course the potential is great. And then you could also maybe in that process figure out that the product or the problem that you're trying to solve for is much bigger in some particular geography. So you could always focus there, but it's always doesn't harm to start from like having customers from multiple different geographies. And in our case that's definitely worked in our favor. And then we've been able to sort of build a company that customers from everywhere are finding value in. And then that's helping us acquire a lot more customers every day than we would have if you were just targeting one geography.
No, I think that makes a lot of sense. And you touched on there how your product is horizontal, which I think is a big component of that.
Yeah.
But second, I think in general, even now to this day, I feel like a lot of people are sleeping on how many great products are coming up across the world. I think
Mhm.
especially as infrastructure has become more commoditized, so
Yeah.
people of various backgrounds can spin up a server. Like even spinning up a server used to require you to buy a server rack and like mount it 20
Yeah.
years ago. And now
Absolutely.
anybody can spin up a server from anywhere, and an AWS or GCP or whatever cloud provider you use got has them. So that's just enabled so much more software to be built around the world, and so many great products to be coming out. And so I actually think that's one thing a lot of US companies or US focused you know investors or startups are very sleeping on of how many opportunities there are globally. And so yeah, I understand both sides of the coin, of course. I
Yeah.
understand why people also say to focus on one market, but I think it really depends on your situation. And being a global team, of course, has its challenges, but one of the benefits, like you mentioned, is there's somebody always awake at least at some
Yeah.
point. So if a customer
Absolutely.
needs anything, you can do that.
Exactly. Yeah.
But that's awesome, and I'm very very excited to see where Clueso goes. I think you guys are just starting off here, but of course, I think the next 5 to 10 years are going to be your guys's, your guys's. So I think sort of wrapping up here, just a couple last questions. Is just you know, I know things change very quickly. Like what 2 3 years ago, you guys were on Desklamp, and now of course you're on Clueso. So it's very hard to say necessarily where things are going to be in the next 3 to 5 years. But if all things go correctly, what do you think your vision for Clueso is in the future in the next 3 to 5 years?
Oh, for sure. I think things are going our way for sure, and then we do believe that things will go correctly because we've just been seeing so much more potential in what we could be doing with our product, with the team we have, right, and with the kind of customers we've onboarded. We've kind of validated that this is a big problem, and there's so much more to be solved in this particular space. So in terms of vision, we want to be that one stop video creation platform for videos and documentation, or like educational content creation platform for any software company in the world. We do want to be that platform, and we already are solving for most of those use cases that people typically want to create videos for, which is like customer training tutorials, how to's, product demos. There are of course all of these couple of other cases as well, like more of something like marketing videos, promo videos, and whatnot, and we do want to be able to solve for those as well soon. So yeah, we want to be like that one stop, at least in the next 3 to 5 years. The short term vision is to be that one stop, videos and documentation creation platform for any kind of use case for software companies. Yeah.
Hmm. Yeah, well, you guys are right on you're right on the path of doing it. So, I'm sure challenges will come up on the journey, but nothing you guys can't address. So, best of luck on that.
Thank
And
you.
last two questions I have for you is, what's one thing you believe that all founders should really focus on in the journey?
Oh, yeah, I think one thing that everyone should focus on very early on is offering the best customer experience they can, right? Again, that's the only other place where you could also win against like big companies apart from shipping fast, is like, just providing that really, really good support and experience to your customers, just helping them out, ensuring that they get value out of it. And that's what we did at Clueso as well. Until now we've onboarded 250 companies, and for all of those companies, we ourselves are all customer success managers. As founders, do the entire support. We've got Slack channels, teams chats, WhatsApp, Discord channels, whatever they use internally. We've got channels with them, specific private channels with them on all of these different platforms, just to be able to ensure really, really good priority support, and ensure that they get value out of the product, which is really important as an early stage company, because that's also one way how you figure out what other problems you could be solving for, if this is even a big enough problem for your customers, or what are the adjacent things that you could be solving for. And also you also get so many more insights by just being uh, so much closer to your customer. For example, if a customer had to give a feedback to you, and if they had something to say, and if writing an email, of course, always takes up so much time, there's so much resistance to it. But then if you had a Slack channel with them, they could just drop a message there as if they were
Of
sending a
course.
message to the team member. So like having those channels, or like have being very, very high touch with all of the customers, or companies that we have worked with as of now, has really, really helped. And that's also helped us grab so many more insights about what we could be building. It has also decided our product direction, and we've been able to build all of those things as well, based on the feedback we've gotten. So that's something that's super important early on. Now, of course, at our scale, we've already been working with 250 plus companies now. So scaling that is super difficult. And that's exactly why we launched, self-serve very recently, wherein now, companies can sign up on their own, and then start using the product without even having to interact with us. So that's something that we are doing now, and so that lot more and more companies can come and sign up and then get started with the product, and then start using it for their use cases. But as of now, we were very high touch with all of the customers. We would give them a demo, understand their requirements in detail, ensure that they were getting value, have Slack channels with each of them. So that's something that's super super helpful and so insightful for early stage founders, that I definitely recommend everyone should do that, at least with the first 50-60 customers that they work with.
Yep, 100%. I completely echo that sentiment.
Yeah,
When we talk about reducing friction, it's not only reducing friction on a product, it's reducing friction for the whole experience. Um,
absolutely.
and especially early stage, I get why bigger companies have more friction, but early stage, wherever you can reduce those barriers, you should
Yeah,
reduce those barriers. And so, like you mentioned, however you can support them, get to them as quickly as possible,
yeah.
and make sure they have a good experience and don't churn off because you get their smaller company. That's what you should do. So very, very cool to hear the way you guys are doing that. And I think you guys have, you know, I don't know too much, but I think you guys have the right approach from where I'm sitting. So very, very excited for that. And I know you mentioned, we talked about the vision for Clueso in the next 3 to 5 years, which in startup years you might as well see saying the next 10 to 20 years, but that's more of a long term. So in the short term, what are the next steps for you and Clueso? Like, what can we look forward to? What are you guys working on?
Yeah, absolutely. In terms of product, there's a lot of things that we're doing. So one thing, as I mentioned, is as of now it is very all very high touch. So now we are launching self serve. So there are a lot of challenges around self serve, of course.
Yeah.
Like having all of those infrastructure in place to scale things well and all of that. So that's one of the things that we are working on and focusing on. How do we offer the best self serve experience we can and build a PLG product? So that's one of the things that we are actively working on. Couple of other things that we are working on is more on the product side. How do we solve for more use cases? As of now, it's the way it works is you drop in a rough screen recording, the output is a professional video, but of the same screen recording with professional script, much more engaging and crisp video. But how do we do more with this? For example, we've had customers wherein they do like larger webinars and recordings, and but they want to create a lot more videos out of it, and then the process right now is super manual as well. So something like, let's say you have got a huge recording or like a demo call that you've done with your customer, and then if you've got custom implementation for your product with each of your customers, creating content for each of the customers is going to be super challenging. So what if you could give that really long video and then upload that onto Clueso, and Clueso would generate that bite size video content for you, for your customers to figure out how to use a product, be it in terms of videos or documentation. So that's one of the
Yeah.
things that we're working on. Second thing is how do we make the videos look even more sexy, right? Like if you want to create like a monthly updates video, it cannot be a very rough like a normal screen record video with a professional voice. You want to add like more elements in between, like slides in between with different features and a quick overview of each of those features, and then diving deeper in all of that. So like ability to add slides in between the videos, and a lot of animations, and how do we basically keep making the videos look sexier and sexier? That's always the goal. And the third aspect is always how do you just make the process even faster, or like automate more of the things that customers are doing today. And so the focus is always on these three things, which is expanding the number of use cases, uh, how do we keep improving the quality of the content that's being produced, and how do you keep making the process faster and faster. Yeah.
Yeah, I can't wait for TikToks by Clueso. But
Yeah.
no, that
So we are
that
trying to solve this for software companies. So initially, it'll mostly be like bite-sized how-to videos out of like a large demo call or a webinar recording. But maybe
yeah,
in
yeah.
future, yes, probably.
Well, you know what? Maybe the way Gen Z will understand the product is if you make TikToks of how tos going forward. It's very quickly bang bang bang. That's all I need. But
Absolutely.
yeah, no, that sounds all sounds super awesome. Very cool to hear you guys doing self serve. We that's one of the experiments we ran here as well, which is fun.
Awesome.
Doing self service cool. So, but if you ever need, and I don't know how much I can help, but if you ever need any help, just let me know. I've been through the process
Will do for
myself, so.
sure.
But yeah, thank you so much for coming onto the podcast. I really appreciate it, Neel. We're just over an hour, so time really flies. But for everyone listening, I hope you enjoyed the podcast as well. And until the next one, thank you so much.
Thanks so much for having me. Really had really fun chatting with you. Yeah.